PR Connections Radio presents
Welcome to Vegas Hockey Hub here on PRConnectionsRadio.com, the voice of new media. I'm your host, Ian Rickelli. And, with the Stanley Cup playoffs going on right now, there has been a lot of conversation, a lot of talk about what is the goaltending situation right now with your Vegas Golden Knights. What is the Vegas Golden Knights going to do moving forward with their goaltending? Because despite a dominant performance against the Winnipeg Jets, despite a regular season where the Vegas Golden Knights goaltenders did a very stand-up job using not one, not two, not three, not four, but 5 goaltenders during the regular season, the major question has come up as to not what's going to happen now, but what's also going to happen in the future regarding the goaltending for your Vegas Golden Knights. So let's start this off with going back for just a little bit. Let's give you a little bit of context as to why the Vegas Golden Knights goaltending matters. So in order to do that, I'm going to go all the way back to July of 2022. Because in July of 2022, in that 2022 offseason, the Vegas Golden Knights, they made some moves that in hindsight is going to lead to this point. So in the offseason of 2022, it was announced that Robin Lehner would be undergoing surgery and would be out for the entire season. Now, keep in mind that Robin Lehner was a guy that they brought in during the 2020 NHL trade deadline in order to try to win a cup during that 2020 NHL season, during the COVID-stricken season. It's also the same Robin Lehner that they gave a $5 million deal that offseason afterwards and was hoping he'd be their starting goaltender after they traded Marc-Andre Fleury. So Robin Lehner being out for surgery, that was a big deal heading into the preseason of 2022. And speaking of which, we also know about the Robin Lehner bankruptcy thing. I'm not going to get more into it, but that is a point of note, is the fact that Robin Lehner is under bankruptcy and the fact that he has not played a game in over 12 months with the Vegas Golden Knights. So Robin Lehner's gone. Right? He's not going to play in 2022. We all knew this. So the Vegas Golden Knights, they have Logan Thompson. Logan Thompson, he's going to be in Rookie of the Year conversation. He's going to be a Calder Trophy favorite heading into the year. He had a solid tryout, a solid few games in 2021, 2022. We'll see what he does in 2022, 2023. But it's also other moves the Vegas Golden Knights made in regards to goaltending that was interesting in hindsight. So in that 2022 offseason, they make a trade to acquire Adin Hill. Now, Adin Hill had played with the Arizona Coyotes. He played with the San Jose Sharks. He was a guy who had been a backup goaltender in the NHL for a while. Adin Hill was a guy who was reliable, but he was never going to be a number one, day one starter. Now, Adin Hill, to put you in some more recent context, is the goaltender who is currently starting their games right now in the Stanley Cup playoffs against Edmonton. So they acquired Adin Hill to be a backup to Logan Thompson after Robin Lehner gets out with a surgery. It's going to be out for the year. They also signed a very low-key signing in Michael Hutchinson. Hey, well, why am I mentioning Michael Hutchinson, you might ask? Because Michael Hutchinson is going to matter a lot later when I get to the NHL trade deadline. So the regular season goes on, and Logan Thompson has an incredible season. Logan Thompson becomes an all-star for the Vegas Golden Knights. So Logan Thompson looks like a guy that, hey, you know what? He might be the next Marc-Andre Fleury. He might be what Robin Lehner was supposed to be. Logan Thompson might be their franchise goalie. All right, he might be their guy in net for a while. And just as we all said that, we got to around the halfway point, and Logan Thompson goes down with an injury. And when Logan Thompson went down, where's Laurent Brossoit? Oh, that's right. He had hip surgery, so he was out for the first 4 months of the year, and he was actually put in Henderson on rehab assignments to begin the year. So they had to call up Laurent Brossoit to be a backup while Adin Hill was playing on the team. And then you had injuries affect the Vegas Golden Knights goaltending so badly that at a certain point you had Jari Patera and you had Michael Hutchinson both be on the active roster at one point for the Vegas Golden Knights in terms of goaltending. So the Vegas Golden Knights in the 2022-2023 season, it was a very weird situation where injuries kept affecting the goaltending, and it kept on making things worse and worse as time went on. Like I said, Robin Lehner, out for the year, he was never going to play. Logan Thompson was a Calder Trophy candidate and an all-star before he got injured. Adin Hill was doing a stand-up job, but then he got injured at a certain point, so he had to be sidelined. And then Laurent Brossoit was out for the first 4 months, and then he got injured a little bit before going on a 6-0 run in the regular season. I think the reason why I'm bringing this up is to bring to attention what they did at the NHL trade deadline. At the 2023 NHL trade deadline, the Vegas Golden Knights traded Michael Hutchinson and a draft pick to the Columbus Blue Jackets for two-time Stanley Cup champion Jonathan Quick. And at the time, this was a big deal because this is a 37-year-old who is already an established guy. He's a two-time Stanley Cup champion, and he's coming to Vegas. Now, was he going to be a starter? We didn't know. Was he going to be a backup? We didn't know. As a matter of fact, he actually started out 3-0 as a Vegas Golden Knight. It was a very interesting situation for Jonathan Quick. And then the wheels fell off, and his last 3 starts were not as promising as his first 3 starts. So, heading into Stanley Cup playoffs, the goaltending for the Vegas Golden Knights was a con. The Vegas Golden Knights goaltending was a weakness heading into their series against Winnipeg. First off, who was going to be their starter? And secondly, who was going to be the main guy heading into the postseason? Because Logan Thompson came back from injury, played 2 or 3 games, and then got injured again. Laurent Brossoit was 6-0 heading into the playoffs, but he had never been a starting goaltender in the postseason. He was always a backup to people like Connor Hellebuck. He was always a backup in Edmonton. He was a guy that you trusted to be on the bench, never to be starting in the postseason. Adin Hill was the same way. Adin Hill was a guy that you rarely ever saw make appearances in the postseason, except if there was a blowout and they had to have their backup in there. People wondered if Jonathan Quick was going to be the goaltender. People wondered if Jonathan Quick, the 2-time Stanley Cup goaltender who they traded for, who Vegas acquired, would be in net for the postseason. And then we found out what was it going to be. And it was Laurent Brossoit, Adin Hill, and that was it. Jonathan Quick would be a healthy scratch. Jari Patera would be a healthy scratch. They would even have goaltender Isaiah Seville be a healthy scratch to be on the roster for the playoffs. And how did the series go in round 1? How did it go? How did they perform in Winnipeg? Well, exceptionally well, actually. Laurent Brisebois did amazing outside of game one. Brisebois had a very difficult game one, letting up all those goals in game one, a very unfortunate defeat for Vegas. But game two, he was solid. Game three, he was very good in the first half. Second half kind of got away. In game four, he was excellent. And then in game five, he was near perfect. So when it came to the Vegas Golden Knights and when it came to Laurent Brisebois, it looked like, hey, you know what? He will be our goalie. He's going to be our guy moving forward. And then round two happened. Round two happened, and this is unfortunately where things started to go not so good for Vegas in terms of goaltending. So in game one, the Vegas Golden Knights, they did okay. I'm going to call it what it was. It was okay. All right, a 5-4 victory. Brisebois did okay. It wasn't great. It wasn't a fantastic performance. It was just an okay effort by Laurent Brisebois. Game two was an absolute tragedy, and he really actually looked bad in game two. There's no way to sugarcoat it. He did not look good in game two. And then game three happened, and the goaltending changed very drastically for your Vegas Golden Knights. So early in the game, game three, Laurent Brisebois goes down with an injury. He goes down with a lower body injury, and keep in mind, he had hip surgery that cost him 4 months of the year. That's very important. So Adin Hill had to come in game three, and he actually did exceptional. He did very well. They only let up one goal in that game, and that actually was Brisebois. So Adin Hill looked pretty sound in game three. Hey, you know what? We're going to trust Adin Hill. He's got this. Game four happens, and it made Adin Hill look like what he was. A backup goaltender being forced to start in the Stanley Cup playoff. Adin Hill looked terrible in game four. There's no nice way to put it. Adin Hill looked like a guy that couldn't stop a lot of redirects. There was times where you saw Connor McDavid use his speed to pretty much just obliterate the goaltending, including Adin Hill. So it wasn't a good situation in game four. Now you are 2-2 heading into the rest of the series. And a question arises. What should Vegas do long-term in terms of goaltending? What does Vegas need to do to address their biggest weakness? Because their biggest weakness is not their offense. Biggest weakness is not defense. And their biggest weakness is definitely not coaching. Vegas's biggest weakness at this point is goaltending. So, what are you going to do moving forward? Now, let's say that Brisebois cannot return. The lower body injury, he is not going to be able to do it. Do you stay with Adin Hill? Do you hope that he has a game three once again and he has an exceptional performance in the rest of the series? Do you call on Jonathan Quick, the two-time Stanley Cup champion that you traded for at the deadline? Do you have him start a game and hope that he could be the guy he was at 27 years old, winning Stanley Cups in LA? So I heard somebody say that they should bring in one of the young guys like Batera or Seville. And I think that Vegas is desperate, but Vegas is not that desperate to have Jari Patera or Isaiah Seville be in net for Vegas. All right, if Jonathan Quick was injured, Adin Hill was injured, if everybody was injured, I would say go ahead and put one of them in. But at the current moment, that is not needed at this time. I've also heard people say, what about Logan Thompson? When is Logan Thompson going to make an appearance? Is Logan Thompson healthy enough to actually be playing for the Vegas Golden Knights? And to really answer that question, I have to really point out, if Logan Thompson was medically cleared, if Logan Thompson was A-okay to play, he would already be playing. Logan Thompson was by far the best goalie the Golden Knights had all year. All right, Brisebois is a close second. Like I said, 6-0 in the regular season. Did really well against Winnipeg. But Logan Thompson was the number one guy in Vegas. So trust me, if Logan Thompson could play, if there was a way to get Logan Thompson to be in net, I have a feeling the Vegas Golden Knights would have done it by now. So your options are simply this. Ride it out with Hill. Hope that he doesn't repeat game 4. Put in Jonathan Quick and pray that he becomes the guy he once was. Or put in a young guy who has little to no postseason experience and hope that he can do better than Quick or Hill. But as I'm addressing the Golden Knights goaltending here on Vegas Hockey Hub on PRConnectionsRadio.com, the voice of new media, I'm your host, Ian Kelly. Let's not just talk about the postseason. Let's address what is after the postseason. Now, I'm not going to sit here and assume what's going to happen in the postseason, so let's just call it what it is. Let's say heading into this offseason, the Vegas Golden Knights, they have this postseason run. Now you have to question your goaltending. You have, right now on your current roster, 6 goaltenders that you can have in net. I'm not counting Jesper Vikman, by the way. I know he's a 21-year-old. He came from Sweden. They drafted him in 2020. Yeah, I'm not counting him, mainly because he is still a prospect. So there's no way that he would even be here. So let's just talk about the current goaltenders they have right now. So let's start out with the current contracts of these goaltenders. Let's see what these goaltenders are going to be like moving forward. Now, Jonathan Quick, Laurent Brisebois, and Adin Hill are all going to be free agents at the end of this offseason. So this pending offseason, 2023, Jonathan Quick was a rental. We all knew this. His $2.9 million contract was a rental. So there is a chance that the Vegas Golden Knights will just move on from Jonathan Quick and not re-sign him moving forward. Adin Hill, a $2.175 cap hit, 27 years old. Now, I believe he did do well. All right, I'm not going to say that he did bad by any means. Adin Hill did what he was supposed to do. As a matter of fact, Adin Hill, if you look at his statistics, he had 27 games started. He had a 91.5 save percentage, a 2.50 ERA. I mean, that's pretty good. All right, 3 games he played in the postseason, a 1.90 ERA, and a goaltending around 93.4. So Adin Hill did not do bad. But the question arises, are you going to pay him to be a backup once again? Because I don't believe Adin Hill would be a starting goaltender moving forward. So for Adin Hill, are you going to pay him around $2 million again to be a backup? Or are you going to let him go and maybe use a combination that you already have at your disposal? And for Laurent Brisebois, he currently is on one last year of his deal, $2.3 million. And his stats from this year, keep in mind, he only played 11 games. He had 11 games played, a 2.17 goals against average, not ERA, and a 92.7 save percentage. And in the postseason is where his stats do not look that good. In 8 postseason appearances, he had a 3.18 goals against average and a 89.4 save percentage. So, when you take that into effect, are you going to bring back Laurent Brisebois based off of what he did at the end of the regular season? Or would you bring back Laurent Brisebois because of what he did in 8 postseason games for Vegas? Now, I have heard fans, I've heard people talk about, what if the Vegas Golden Knights let go of Quick, let go of Brisebois, and let go of Hill, and they just trust Leonard and they trust Thompson? Now, that's an interesting idea. However, who's going to be the starter and who's going to be the backup? Because Robin Lehner will have been out for over 18 months by the time next season starts. Laurent Brisebois, at least he has played some games. Jonathan Quick, at least has played some games. Aiden Hill has at least played some games. Logan Thompson played majority of the first half of the season. Bringing back Robin Lehner as a starter is probably unlikely. Yes, he has the cap hit, but it's unlikely that he'd be the starting goaltender due to how long he has been out in net. I mean, keep in mind that 18 months in the NHL is almost like 5 years in real life, okay? When it comes to how long you've been out in net, that's a lot of time for a team to move on from you. So let's just say that next year it is Logan Thompson as a starting goaltender and Robin Lehner as a $5 million backup. Now, if Kelly McCrimmon and George McPhee and all those guys want to trust it, go right ahead. I just wonder how that's going to work. Because Logan Thompson, yes, he has gotten injured twice. Robin Lehner has had problems with injuries. To me, it seems like the Vegas Golden Knights would be bringing back two guys who have injury concerns in net. Now, we know what Logan Thompson can do when he's healthy. We just saw it. We just saw that he could be an all-star when he is healthy. Robin Lehner, he was a guy that was reliable and consistent when he is healthy. So, if you're the Vegas Golden Knights, are you going to trust that 26-year-old Logan Thompson and 31-year-old Robin Lehner are going to stay healthy and are going to be around long term? Or, since Logan Thompson is going to stay around, I mean, he's only making $700,000, I think it'd be a smart move to keep him around for the follow 2 seasons. Do you buy out Robin Lehner? Do you buy out his $5 million contract and then either bring up Jari Patera as their backup goaltender? Or do you go to free agency and do you try to get a goaltender that you could trust? Well, who's going to be a goaltender that you could trust? I'm so glad you asked that. When it comes to the Vegas Golden Knights, there are some goalies on the market that you actually could go out and get for the right price. Now, I'm not going to get into a certain goaltender because no, there's no way that we are going to sign a guy like Tristan Jarry. All right, we're not going to get Mackenzie Blackwood. We're probably not going to get someone like Ilya Samsonov. Those guys are most likely coming back to their original team. But there are some veterans that you could get for cheap if you had to. So, for example, just to kind of set the tone here, I mean, when it comes to the Vegas Golden Knights, there are some goaltenders, like I mentioned already, that you could go out and say, you know what, we got to get this guy. This guy's reliable. He's dependable. He is someone that we could trust moving forward. Now, Martin Jones from Seattle would be kind of a guy I'd look at and say, you know what? He went 27, 13, and 3 this past season. He had goals against average under 3. If you could get him for the right price, despite the fact that he has been a veteran for a long time, maybe go out and get him. Because this past season, he was a guy that was a backup to Philip Grubauer. And he did really well as a backup to Philip Grubauer. Just like, for example, you have a guy like Martin Jones who backed up Carter Hart. So if you're the Vegas Golden Knights and you're trying to figure out the goaltending situation next year, if you get rid of Quick, if you get rid of Hill, and you get rid of Brisebois, who are you going to trust moving forward? So as we're talking about the goaltending situation with your Vegas Golden Knights, I'm talking about the future. Yes, the postseason's going on. That's great and fine. But I'm talking about what is their future after the postseason. What is their future heading into the offseason? Because I mentioned before, Laurent Brisebois is a free agent in 2023. Jonathan Quick was a rental. He'll be a free agent. Aiden Hill was on a one-year deal. He will be a free agent. Logan Thompson is under a rookie contract, so he'll be making $750,000 for the next 2 seasons. And Robin Lehner will be making $5 million for the next 2 years. So, if you are the Vegas Golden Knights, do you let go of all 3 of those free agents? Do you let them walk? And do you rely on Logan Thompson and Robin Lehner to be your 2 goalies next year? Do you buy out Robin Lehner? And do you have a young goaltending core of Logan Thompson and Jari Patera in net? Or do you go to free agency and do you go after someone like Martin Jones from Seattle, a guy who is in his 30s? He's been a backup for a while, but he only costs about $2 to $3 million to be a backup. How about a guy like James Reimer? James Reimer, once again, he plays for San Jose. He's been in the NHL for a long time, but he is a guy that is only going to cost about $2.5 million for the Vegas Golden Knights. What about Antti Raanta? Antti Raanta is a 34-year-old goaltender in Carolina who has done phenomenal in this playoff. I mean, Antti Raanta in 5 games has had a goals against average under 3 and a 90.6 save percentage. So I'm just giving you a little bit of options in terms of what the Golden Knights have in terms of future situation. Martin Jones, James Reimer, Antti Raanta. You have Anton Udobin if they want to bring someone like that. Maybe get a guy like Keith Kincaid from Colorado if they want to go for a cheap option. Maybe, just maybe, go after a guy like Dylan Ferguson, bring him back. Oh, by the way, Dylan Ferguson's in Ottawa, for anybody who doesn't remember that. So, if you are the Vegas Golden Knights, and this is where I want to leave it with, you have a lot of options in terms of goaltending. But what I wanted to address on today's episode of Vegas Hockey Hub is, what is the Golden Knights goaltending future, not now, but in the future? What are the Golden Knights going to do moving forward? Because you have Jesper Vikman, you have Cameron Whitehead, who are your 2 goaltending prospects in the minors in your future system. You also have 2 guys in the AHL in Jari Patera and Isaiah Seville. And you have an all-star in Logan Thompson. And you have a guy getting paid $5 million in Robin Lehner. So the Vegas Golden Knights are going to have to figure out what they're going to have to do moving forward in terms of goaltending. But I want everyone around the world to tell me, what do you think about the Golden Knights goaltending? What do you say they're going to do long-term here in Vegas? And while we're here, I want to give a shout out to everybody on prconnectionsradio.com, the voice of new media. All the fantastic shows that are here on PR Connections Radio. You have Cozy Stone. She's phenomenal, by the way. She's great at what she does. You have Aunt Shirley. I'm always a fan of her videos. She always makes me smile. You have Guy Dawson for putting all of this together, because trust me, if it wasn't for Guy Dawson, this show would not exist. Dana, I know she puts in a lot of work behind the scenes, so give a shout out to her. And I also will say the Love of Business, Crypto and Cash. This has been a lot of great content here on PR Connections Radio. I'm just happy that Vegas Hockey Hub is part of it. So, this was your latest episode of Vegas Hockey Hub here on prconnectionsradio.com, the voice of new media. Follow us on social media at Vegas Hockey Hub, or follow your host at Ian Rakelli 18. That's IANRACHIELE 18. And until next time, we are going to be continuing talking about the Vegas Golden Knights here on Vegas Hockey Hub. So continue watching hockey, go support junior hockey, and go Knights, go.